Let's get started. So as you can tell, I'm not Darcy. Darcy is on believe it or not, Darcy's on a spiritual trip right now in Colombia. And I don't have all the details, but basically she wanted to let everybody know that she's praying for everybody. Okay. And I really believe it when she says that. She's praying for the whole world right now. So while she's enjoying that trip, I am here to hopefully bring some value to the first quarter of our call here today. I stole her beginning slides. They're the same every time. Enlightened agent, mastermind, a reminder that mastermind with high performing agents. Let me move my stuff around so I can see everything first. Let me not talk without moving my Zoom. Masterminding with high performing agents on what they are doing differently in their lives and the business to thrive in a shifted market. Walking in the world with more enlightenment. All right, some rules and reminders before the call. Be kind and respectful, please. No recruiting, all different agencies represented. And we want to keep the focus on hope and help. Take notes, be engaged, please ask questions. Feel free to unmute yourself. Share your experiences and what you think that might help someone else. The goal of the mastermind is to bring different speakers to talk about their habits, their activities, their mindsets that have helped them to continue to learn and grow, to become better versions of ourselves for our business, and more importantly, for our families and all the people that we reach out in the world on any given day. So my conversation today is going to be around building and understanding kind of around our nervous systems and how they impact our success. So whether that's in our personal relationships, our businesses, whatever that might be, we're kind of going along with this theme for our group coaching on our team, Darcy and I, talking about the nervous system, talking about what it looks like when it's dysregulated, when it is regulated, and how that can help us just as people walk better through the world. And then our wonderful guest, Yvette and Jim Blem, are here from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they're going to share some insights on reframing failure within their business and their business journey. So very much looking forward to that. So let's get started. All right. Understanding and regulating your nervous system for success. Full transparency, before I was a director of operations, I was a high school biology teacher. So this is right up my alley. And actually, I'll be honest, I preferred earth science. I like plate tectonics more than biology, but it's right up my alley and I enjoy talking about this kind of stuff. So if it looks like a science teacher made this PowerPoint, I apologize in advance. You're not back in class for too long. How to recognize dysregulation and some easy steps. And I'm hoping to leave you guys with a little bit of a how-to for, moving on with your days after this. So today we're going to go over signs of dysregulation. Why am I dysregulated? Steps to improve your nervous system and success, what they have to do with each other. And then a morning routine for regulation. And if we have time, of course, fun facts, because I wouldn't be a science teacher if I didn't offer fun facts about whatever we're talking about. Okay, so signs of dysregulation, and I'm going to have you guys start getting in the chat here. So I'll read them out loud, and as I'm reading them, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. I want you to tell me just in the chat how many of the 6 you've experienced at some point. So there's frequent anxiety or panic attacks, chronic fatigue or exhaustion, trouble focusing or memory issues, insomnia or irregular sleep patterns, digestive issues, kind of that gut-brain connection happening, or mood swings or emotional outbursts. We also call this irritability on our team. All right, so in the chat, how many of the 6 have you personally experienced? Some of you are like, oh, I did all 6 of them today. Fatigue, 3 of the 6. Tom never has any of this, so he's good. All right, 3, 2. I mean, if you're looking at this list, it's not a great list, guys. Even if you just said one, I feel, I feel you and I feel for you. So, all right. So why might we be dysregulated? I want to make a little bit, I put an asterisk here. I do want to make a note that if you are, obviously, if you've experienced some sort of large trauma, like large T trauma, or you have some sort of mental health diagnosis, or maybe you're in an abusive relationship, something of that nature that's on the extreme, this conversation's not for you. I'm not going to tell you, oh, just breathe through it. Those are things that you probably need professional help to change those things. Those take bigger, bigger movements. And I just want to just put that out there because you never know who you're talking to. And so just being aware of that some people, it's not as simple as just breathing or changing their routine, if that makes sense. So the nervous system controls your stress response. So there's going to be some sort of stimulus at any given time. That could be something somebody said, something we smelled, any one of our senses, recognizing a stimuli and then responding to it. And so not spending time in both your sympathetic and parasympathetic system is actually a problem. Your body was meant to be able to sit in that parasympathetic, which is like relax mode, rest and digest, chill out, like breathe a little bit, use those automatic systems like your digestion and things like that. And then, at the flip of a switch, it should be able to run into your sympathetic and, run away from a saber-toothed tiger or something like that. Evolutionarily speaking, we're supposed to be able to switch on and off. And if we do have to go into that sympathetic state, hopefully not spending too much time there. So if you are spending a lot of time, which many, many people are, describing this as how they feel, kind of in a constant state of stress nowadays, whether that's because of the email notifications on your phone or, like the news or, anything that might be kind of triggering on a kind of consistent basis, like throughout your day, throughout your week, throughout the month, you may be living in a chronic stressed state or spending too much time within your sympathetic nervous system. Okay. Any questions so far? Awesome. So some ways that we can regulate. I'd love if you guys would put in the chat if you've tried any of these things. Maybe it wasn't necessarily because you were thinking you were going to regulate your nervous system, but just because, it's good or healthy for you. Breath work and mindfulness, which we're going to do an example of one of these here. Deep belly breathing or box breathing, the psychological sigh, which I'll tell you about, meditation or guided relaxation. 2 is movement or exercise. This could be anything from gentle stretching, yoga, and walking. It could also be, lifting weights to a certain degree or doing something a little bit more extreme, so long as, once again, your body's being able to come down from that stress. There's things like cold exposure. I'd love to hear if anybody's done. Does anybody here do cold plunges on a regular basis? Something I'd love to get into. I used to jump into Lake Superior every spring when I lived in Minnesota, and that was enough of a cold plunge for me. But I wish I had one of those tubs. Maybe that should be on my wish list next Christmas. And then social connection, and we really, really, really don't pay enough attention to this one because one is, we have these professional relationships, right? And it's not always appropriate at all times and in all places to be trying to, engage in joyful conversation. However, it is a huge part of regulating our nervous systems because we're such social creatures. Once again, going back, evolutionarily speaking, we're meant to be around people. And oftentimes when you're feeling dysregulated, you actually do the exact opposite of this. You isolate yourself, right? You maybe don't go to an event. You kind of back off of conversations with people, or you don't make that phone call you usually make to a friend. And don't worry, time with your furry family members count too. So if you're somebody who's a dog mom, or you are really obsessed with your goats or your chickens or your birds, those all count too. So actually spending time with any creature that you love will count as well. So I didn't see anything in the chat, but I just curious, has anybody made like a meaningful attempt at any of these kind of regulatory practices?
So I challenged myself. I went to an event and there was a speaker there who talked about he's successful because he's got mentors in all aspects of his life. And so somehow I connected that with this guy who's a global jujitsu champion. And so 4 weeks ago, I started Krav Maga and basic martial arts. So here I am with all these younger people running, kicking, doing all this different stuff. And the breathing thing that he challenges me to when I am just out of it is stop, inhale, hold a second, exhale, hold a second. And his intention is to get me from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32 seconds between inhale and exhale when I'm exhausted. But even doing that for 4 seconds is just, it really brings you right back down to a slower heart rate quickly. So it's got to apply everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe it's my next slide. We're going to talk about breath and the psychological side. Thank you for sharing that. Somebody in the chat also put exercise is my therapy. Box breathing when I'm trying to get sleep. It's a really good one. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so here is the psychological sigh, and this was done. Meditation, breathing, breath work goes back millennia, of course, but some research out of Stanford and the Huberman Lab, actually, which some of you guys might have heard of. He's a really famous like podcaster right now, semi-controversial, but he's just because he has some supplements and stuff he likes to sell as well, like everybody in the podcast universe. However, Stanford and his lab did this research on the psychological sigh and how it can actually impact pretty instantaneously, like within a couple of minutes, how you're feeling. So we're actually going to practice this. And I will mute myself because I'm not trying to make this an ASMR experience for everybody. But I am gonna, I'll talk you through the steps, and then I want you all to try it with me. So the really important part of the psychological side is that we're filling our lungs to their absolute capacity. So the reason for that is when you're just standard breathing, the smaller portions of our lungs aren't necessarily expanding as largely as they can. So the alveoli, they're called, if you must know the scientific term, but these tiny little like microscopic little air sacs within your lungs, not just the large capacity of it. They can stay closed unless we take a really big inhale. And when we do inhale and we fill all of our lungs, it actually, if stretched out, would be the size of a tennis court. All of that skin that's in there, all of that structure and that surface. So the idea is we're gonna inhale so much to cover that tennis court. And then, so we're gonna do one big inhale, and you're gonna think that's all I got, and you're gonna do a short, quick one to get all the rest of it, and then exhale slowly. And obviously you can repeat this as many times as you want to. I'm gonna give us like 30 seconds. And once again, I'm gonna mute myself so you don't have to be listening to my nose. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I'm on the other side of this where I'm like, a little bit nervous talking. I don't mind public speaking, but we're on a call and I'm having to, talk and entertain. And I'm like, man, I wish I could just stop every 30 seconds and do that. That feels good. Any insights? Anybody feel anything different than just their average inhale, exhale?
More energetic.
Feel some energy. Yeah. Anybody else? Any ahas there? All right, I'm going to keep moving. So here's the next one. And we don't necessarily need to practice this one, but this is this is a Harvard research study on the effects of people with anxiety, depression, some of the things we talked about at the very beginning, and the effects on doing this stop, breathe, be moment. And where this is good is in transitions. So this doctor in particular, she has small children, and she says she does this when she's about to get in the car to bring them to school. So all you have to do is exactly what it says. She just stops, breathes, and then be, meaning like ground your feet into the floor and be where you're at for that moment. See, because anxiety comes from thinking about the future, right? And depression comes from thinking about the past. So as you're getting your stuff out the door, as you're thinking about kids' lunches and like who's got picture day and all that kind of stuff, or you're like on your way out the door for a listing and you're like, do I have all the packets? Do I have all the things? Do I have everything I need? You may forget something because your mind is, what if this happens and it doesn't go well? Or this really sucked about yesterday, right? And if we don't take a second to just be in the present moment, we might forget something or, not show up as our best selves. So this is just a good reminder. A stop, breathe, be is this moment that you take often in transition to kind of help you out. Okay. I am at my 20 minutes and I do not want to go over for our friends, Yvette and Jim. If we have some time at the end, I'll talk about the morning routine, but I really want to get into reframing failure. So before we transition into that, let me just see here. Got a slide. Just make sure that I'm sharing and making you guys the host. Okay, before we get into reframing failure, just to put a a period at the end of this conversation, is there anybody here who feels like nervous system conversations or like anything about what I was talking about for the last 20 minutes is something that they may need to implement, or are there any ahas before we move on? Okay, great. I know on our team, the conversation kind of circled a lot around, a lot of time, more often than not, we don't realize how simple it is to kind of get ourselves out of that heightened hyper state. And so if you find yourself in it a lot, these little things of just taking a pause or taking an extra breath in can really be impactful. So with that, Jim, Yvette, let's hear it.
Hello. That was very good. I agree. I do a lot of that when I'm negotiating deals, right? That's my 2 cents. You got to step back, take a deep breath, and sometimes think about what you actually want to say as opposed to what's going through your head. But yeah. So go ahead.
Oh, we appreciate you inviting us. I know Darcy's talked to us about your group quite a bit over the last couple of months, so we're super excited to share with you. And failure is kind of we talk about failure a lot with our team, and kind of our perspective on that. One of the things that we really wanted to share with you was maybe an experience that we had a couple of years ago. And it started, we were at an event called Built How. I don't know if you've heard of Built How, but it was a convention. And at that one, there was a speaker, Colin O'Brady. And Colin O'Brady, right? Is
Yep.
that right? Colin O'Brady wrote a book called The 12-Hour Walk. And so he was up, he was presenting on stage just his journey, which is an incredible story. If you ever get a chance to hear his story, it's an incredible story. And one of the things that he was doing was challenging us to this thing called a 12-hour walk. And so he was getting kind of a group of people together virtually, and we were going to do it on a specific day. And so he said, and so he's talking about it. I'm like, yeah, this sounds good. This sounds good. And he said, the minute you say this sounds good, all of a sudden your brain is going to start coming up with all of these reasons why you can't do it. Oh, I don't have time. Oh, that's not for me. You know, all of these things. And so that actually started happening for me, where I was like super excited about it. And then I'm like, yeah, no, I can't do it. I don't have time. I'm not, at the time, I really was not into fitness, any of that stuff. And I sat back for a moment. And I thought, guy, like, you're not being true to yourself. You're like, things come up and you commit to those, and you're kind of bailing out on those. You're not following through. And the more I thought about it, it's like, you're not becoming a person of your word. You're overcommitting, you're saying these things. And in that moment, I felt really inauthentic. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I think externally, you know, my sphere and the people I was talking to about it, they saw that like, oh, that's really great that you're doing it. But internally, it was like, I'm only doing it because I don't want to lie to myself one more time. I want to follow through on what I say I'm going to do. So fast forward, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, this event comes up, and so I participated in it. And it kind of like started me on this path, this journey of, well, what else is out there for me? What else have I been saying no to, or what else have I been cheating myself out of? And so it took me to an event that Colin is also involved in called 29029, which is an endurance event on a mountain. And so I said, you know what? And so I think that was maybe a year out, right?
Yeah.
I said, okay, this event came up, and I'm like, oh, you know, should I do it? Should I not do it? Like, it's not me, you know, like I've never done anything like this before. And I couldn't let it go. I just could not let this go. I probably drove Jim crazy. Should I do it? Should I not do it? And so fast forward, I ended up, I signed up for it. And so this particular one, it's climbing Whistler Mountain, the equivalent of Mount Everest. So it's actually climbing this mountain 8 times. So you climb, you ride the gondola down, you climb, you ride, and it's over a certain amount of time, 36 hours. And so I spent some time training for it. There's a training program for it. I'm training for it. And I thought, I've got this. I can do this. And so, and I had a group of friends that were also doing it. And so we get out there, and I made it 3 of the 8 times. 3 of the 8 times. And it was so my friends that were kind of with me were like, there was kind of this thought of, oh, you didn't make it. You didn't make it. And in that moment, I was able to like not take that, what looked like a failure, or what people could look like was failure. And I was able to like see it in a different perspective. And so I saw it in this perspective of like, had I like stop and appreciate what I actually did, that I'm not an endurance athlete. So appreciate what I was able to accomplish, that challenge and accomplishing it. And then instead of focusing on what didn't go right or what you didn't achieve, I was able to focus on a bigger picture. And so from that, it just like has taken us on a path of, hey, instead of looking at what I didn't accomplish. Let's look at what we did accomplish. And in that moment, I was able to like, okay, there's a bigger picture here. Had I actually made it the 8 times, would I actually see this bigger picture? Would I see this other avenue that had opened up in that failure? And through that, it's like just like taken me on this journey of health and fitness and understanding. And what were you going to say?
What she saw as the end, right? The end of the climb actually kind of became the beginning of the climb of the journey, right? As she said, if she would have made it, that would have been the end of the journey, but it actually ended up being the beginning.
Yeah, and it's actually applied to a lot of different things in since that. That was probably about Whistler was last year, but the journey started about 2 years ago. But it's what it happened in that moment is being able to look at other areas that maybe come up and you look at, oh, I failed there, right? I had an agent just a few days ago. We were talking about an experience that she had. And so I was able to say, okay, well, let's look at that experience. Was there one good thing that came out of that? Can you name one good thing? And she said, yeah, I can name one thing. I said, okay, can we take the negative? Can we take those negatives and can we find a way to refocus that and say, did that negative, could that have moved you in an area where maybe you wouldn't have moved before? And so talking to her, she said, well, yes, it was negative, but it helped me to create better boundaries. It also moved me into a direction where I wouldn't have gone in that direction. I would have stayed here. That was kind of the kick that I needed to refocus me. And so Jim and I, we were having a conversation just a couple of days ago. Did you want to share that? I know that's a little bit personal, so I didn't know if you wanted to share that.
Sure.
So we're riding in the car, and Jim said, you know what? I'm feeling like I'm just.
The term I use is I feel like I'm dead inside, right? And what I meant was no emotion, not good, not happy, not sad, just kind of dead inside, right? Like, and
so in that moment, I said, well, let's stop. Let's not label that bad. Let's just stop in that moment and let's take that. So you're having these feelings, these negative feelings. Let's just stop and say, is that maybe just redirecting you? Don't label it bad. Don't label it good. Don't label it bad. Let's just take that for a moment and say, okay, you're processing that as not a great emotion. Can we just say maybe it's redirecting you in another area? And so through that, like if you'll take an experience or even an emotion that you might think is a negative emotion, and instead of labeling it, you just let it be. Just let it be. Just say, okay, well, this is happening and it doesn't feel good. I'm going to see, is it just redirecting my attention? Is it redirecting my focus? And so I think sometimes we take these negative experiences or these negative emotions and we start like kind of going internal on it. Oh, I'm failing. Oh, I'm not able to. Oh, I'm not good enough. But if you can just stop and say, okay, that is just an emotion, which is just an indicator. What is it trying to tell me? It's trying to get my attention to focus over here. And what I found, the same thing like with the mountain climb and not hitting the red hat is the ultimate that you get when not getting the red hat allowed me to say, okay, you know what, I thought my health was in a good spot, but because I didn't hit the red hat, I realized, no, I have a lot of work to do. So let me refocus and let me do the work over here. And same thing with these, a negative emotion comes up. And instead of going internal and saying, this is bad, or I'm not good enough, or I can't do it. If you just stop and say, okay, what is this trying to show me? All of a sudden, a whole new path opens up that you couldn't see in that moment. And
I think when I took that moment, it made me realize, right? Like you hit certain plateaus, right? And we're at a spot in our business. We've had great growth and everything, but I feel like we're at that plateau of how do we get how we got here is not how we got to get to the next spot, right? Something's got to change. And so it's me trying to figure out how do we get there. And so that emotion, while I labeled it as I'm not feeling happy or sad, but it's an emotion that made me think, okay, what's it trying to tell me, right? What do I got to figure out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim, that's really powerful. I just put it in the chat what you just said. How we got here is not how we were going to get to where we want to be. And that is such a self-aware statement, which obviously is the first step. But, it takes people a while to get there. And so if you hadn't taken that beat to recognize, like, maybe this numbness is, circling around the fact that I'm a little bit not sure what's next.
Right.
And not feeling the immediate motivation to just, jump into new stuff because, hey, I've already done this before and, we're pretty successful and pretty comfortable or whatever that might be. I'm taking some, assumptions here, but I just want to mention Paige said that the word for a focus for her year is keeping promises to herself. So it's such an inspiring story to share that's resonating with her. And I think, one of the things that you mentioned, Yvette, about, was there a different path had you gone? And obviously the point you're making is not to ruminate about what if. But when we find ourselves in a spot that we don't love, there's almost always something, something that it's either keeping us from or, pushing us towards. And I love that sentiment because it puts a lot more meaning into things.
Right.
Yeah. Anybody else want to share
Great.
anything before they continue? Go ahead. Sorry, Paige.
I was just gonna say, yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's very inspiring. I think it's not just like we talk about it a lot, like reframing your mindset, not just on like the negative self-talk kind of stuff, but like everything. Like so, like when we're doing our scripts in the morning, like, oh, I got a script. Like, no, you get to script today. No,
Right.
you get to call these people today. You don't have to, oh, I gotta call all these people to make sure. Like, no, you get to. And so, like talking about and like just even talking about this and raising awareness to like the negative self-talk even that you're having and that's just basically what it is. And like so being able to reframe that and not just like, oh, like shoot, like I didn't make it up the mountain. Like, no, I did 3 times. That is freaking badass of me just to do that, even though you never maybe thought you were going to do that before. And so yeah, I just really wanted to say thank you, and that's really great.
Yeah, I was on a call just earlier this week, and the gentleman, I think his name was William Lamb. He was talking about like the words that we use, and there's words that there's phrases or words that we use and we think is positive. So one of the things we talk a lot about is scarcity mindset, and we'll say things like, "Okay, I don't want to be in a scarcity mindset," and he says it feels like we're saying something positive, but our brain is hearing negative. It's hearing scarcity. And so he was saying, reframe those words. And instead of saying, I don't live in a scarcity mindset, say, I live in abundance. And so I've really been working that this week. Instead of thinking of things kind of in that negative words, I really have been looking at those positive words. So living in abundance has really, or this morning, I was on the treadmill this morning, and I was thinking like everything that I need, I have. Everything that I need right now, I have. I have everything I need to make the next step. Everything I need to get through the next few minutes. And so not getting so caught up in all of these expectations and just like hyper focusing on where am I right now? What are the words that I'm feeding into myself and the thoughts? And it's just, it's crazy how when you take that, when you just like turn it, it's just like it's a little tweak in the way that you say things. One of the things that he said was, he said, don't say time is short. you know, like, how do we say that? Like, how do we say it? Is it time is short?
Life is
Time
short. A lot of people say that, yeah.
Life is
Life
short.
is short.
Life is short. He said, you'll say life is short, and you mean that positive. What you're saying is, don't waste time. Get out, you know, get out there. Don't, you know, do the things you love. You're meaning it positive, but it's a negative way of saying it. He said, life is not short. Like, go out there and live life. Don't limit yourself with that. And it's just like thinking about those little tiny tweaks. We always think we have to make these massive changes, but it's just like these little tiny tweaks
No.
over time. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's brain science too, that our minds don't think in the negative. They actually don't take in that negative. So it's like if somebody's skiing, I've heard it described this way. If you're skiing and you say like, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, your brain literally only hears hit the tree, hit the tree, hit the tree. It
Hit the
doesn't
tree.
process
Yeah.
that negative. So
Yeah.
you're gonna, and you're gonna go towards what you're focusing on. So if you're focusing on, like you said, that keyword being scarcity, you're moving towards scarcity. And if you're thinking about
Right.
abundance, you're moving towards abundance. You're moving towards what you're
Exactly.
thinking about. So I love that. I love that.
So we're working now to be really careful about labeling emotions. You know, if
Mhm.
something comes up, like it's one of the things Jim and I were talking about this morning. I said, you know, like we would never like look at a shovel and like make it into any more than it is in a shovel. It's a tool. And so if we're going to look at our emotions that same way, hey, that emotion, it's not good or bad. It's just an indicator. What makes it good or bad are the labels that we put on it. So if we can just like pause in that moment and say, okay, what is this trying to show me? And we take that moment and even like pair it in with the breathing that you were talking about. You're having this big emotion. If you can just stop it and ground it, there can be a whole nother path that you don't even see. You know, we've got this kind of our agenda or our routine, but if we can just stop in that moment, reframe it and be open to another direction, things open up that you would have never taken that path. Just like the fitness path that I'm on now, I never ever would have thought that it would have never been anything I raised my hand for, but it came out of at the time what felt like a negative space, saying I'm lying to myself all the time, I'm not following through, I'm not authentic to myself, and through that this whole other path opened up.
Mm. Yeah, I feel you saying a lot of mantras too. Like you said, that I have everything I need, and you know,
Yeah.
it's so important. We've done a lot of mantra talk on our team. Any other ahas from anything that they said so far? Delaney, Elizabeth, Destiny? Want to make sure you guys feel comfortable either putting in the chat or unmuting. Ethan, Tom. Oh, somebody's driving. Okay, stop texting. You're good. Have you guys seen any, so you guys are obviously, you know, you're working with other agents. You know, are you trying to kind of implement this just by being a role model with these kind of words that you use, or are you talking to agents about this and, you know, are you seeing an impact, or now that you have the awareness yourself, are you seeing how the negativity might be impacting others?
So it's a huge dynamic on our team with our team culture. We talk a lot about the words that we use. For one example, we're super careful. We have our morning, we do gratitudes in the morning with our team, and we talk about certain things with business. And so we're careful about things like saying, I have a listing, when we actually haven't yet signed that listing. So we're careful about the words that we use. So mindset is a huge conversation on our team. Like talk.
And it has been for years, and it served us well through some of the challenges of the last several years, right? It's been a different type of market, but it's allowed us to stay focused and get accomplished what we want. We've grown every year, so that's been good.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it is mindset talk, right? Because a lot of times agents on our team, or including us, right? If you get focused on that emotion and that challenge, you can spiral out of control and you lose focus of what you got to get done, right? And then you
Yeah.
create a whole nother problem.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely. Wow, well, I appreciate that that share and even being vulnerable enough to share, I think failure obviously is not the fun word, but that's the F word that we don't talk about.
Yeah. It's
But
funny because everybody talks in business, right? Fail faster, but
yes,
there's an
yeah,
emotion, right? There's an emotion of I'm not good enough a lot of times,
Well,
right?
we throw out those sayings when we're not in the middle of it. Well, like Jim said, we'll say, fail forward. Like we hear that a lot, fail forward. And when you're not in the middle of failure, it lands different. But when you're in the
Yeah.
middle of something really going sideways, like there's so much emotion in that, right? And so we do talk about that a lot with there's let's not just say the words fail forward, understand what that really means. That means that you're not feeling really good right now. You're not feeling it. And so how do you work through those emotions, and how do you look at that in a way to say, okay, yep, this didn't go the way I wanted it to go. How can I pause? How can I look at this? And I always say, what one good thing happened with this? Because we can get so focused on the bad that there's at least one good thing that you can say, even if that is, hey, it helped me to have better boundaries. It helped me to know not to do that again.
yeah,
There can be one good thing, and it just takes that little tweak to say, okay, I can move past this, or okay, I can see this in a different light where I didn't want to look at it before. Now I can look at it, and maybe there isn't one thing, maybe there's 3 or 4 things that I can say, oh, I should do this a little bit different. But yeah, emotions can be tricky things, that's
They
for
can.
sure.
They can.
Can you talk about how you came about finding 29029? I went and Googled it. That's the height of Mount Everest.
Yeah.
What you
Yeah,
expected to get out of it and what you did get out of it?
So I did that 12-hour walk, and Colin is associated with the 29029. And the group that I was in, a couple of them had participated in it. It's a mastermind group that I'm in. And so they had participated in it, I think the year before, and they were kind of talking about it. And it was something that I just, like, I looked into it and I just could not let it go. There wasn't really like a very good explanation other than I just could not let it go. It's like, I want to do this. And then it's like, you kind of go back and forth. I want to do this. I can't do this. I want to do this. This isn't me. And I just, at one point I realized I can't let it go. I'm going to sign up for it. I just can't let it go.
Go ahead.
No.
We had heard Colin speak, right? So Colin was the first person to cross the South Pole unassisted. And this was after he was told that he would never walk again after he got injured on a vacation.
Yeah, his story is
right.
incredible.
His story is an incredible, amazing story. And so he did that, and he came back and he created this event. So like you said, 29029 is the equivalent of climbing that's the elevation of Mount Everest when you climb it.
And he's climbed Mount Everest.
And he's climbed Mount Everest. He actually climbed the 7 tallest summits. They call it the 7 summits, which is the tallest peak in each continent. And so he was one of the creators of that, and we heard him talk, and we did some research like you did there, and that's how we came across it through our mastermind group that he spoke at.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. And I guess, I invited my son, so my oldest son, to go with me. He's a firefighter. So my actual thought in inviting him was, if I can't make it, he can carry me to the top. And so it ended up, and I thought, well, this would be a really great experience for us, to have. And so that was kind of my driver, is I want to do something different. I don't know why I'm so I was gravitating toward this so much. I just could not let it go. And then to have this experience with my son was the other driver. And my son was kind of like, yeah, Mom, I'll go with you. And he really wasn't into it until we got there. And now my son is like all about this. Every single day we're talking about it. And so I can't really give a good reason why I was drawn to it. Just now looking back, I can see like it's kind of the direction that my life needed to go at that moment, you know. So I think when all that was happening, I was 59. I was looking at turning 60. You know, there's a lot of emotions that come in with that. Where's my life right now? And so now looking back, I can see, okay, yep, that was the path that I was supposed to be on, just because of where I am now, and health wise, and just energy and mindset. So many things have come out of just raising a hand and saying, you know, I'm going to do this really hard thing that I don't know if I can do. And I do talk with the team about that a lot, is like, you need to find that thing. You need to find that thing that you're just not sure. Am I going to be able to do that? That's so outside my comfort zone. But when you show up for it, even if you don't complete it in the way that you feel like you should complete it, you come out of it a different person. And I know they talked about this before. When you get off the mountain, you'll be a different person. It was not like a big hallelujah moment. But later on, I could look back and say, you know what? I'm showing up different. I'm doing things different. I'm thinking about things different. It was a very subtle thing in the beginning that now I can look back and say, wow, there's some big changes since Whistler. But there was really no real plan other than I just can't let it go.
You were just drawn. That's good. I
Yeah.
think focusing on why pulls you back to a time when, instead of continuing forward. So why
Yeah.
is not as important as just how. So that was good.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
really sounds like that deeper connection with your son was another huge, you know, aha, or, you know, if you want to say like gain from that loss,
Yes.
if you will, like
Yes.
That wasn't expected.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah, unexpected. And yeah, wow.
Yeah, very, very, very unexpected. I think that's, you know, I think if had I gone a different direction and said, oh, I didn't make it, and, you know, put my head down and felt bad about that, I would have missed so many other opportunities in that moment that have been so much more valuable had it turned out the way that I had originally intended it to turn out. I would have missed those moments.
Yeah.
and there is another mountain coming.
There is another mountain. Yeah, Mount Tremblant is the one this year.
Is the next one.
Yeah.
And so you're in Grand Rapids, which is not the hilliest area I've ever been to.
It is
So
It
not.
is pretty darn flat.
It is very flat.
That's been a challenge in her training.
It has
Right.
been. It has. I did. They do provide a training outline, but I've never done an endurance event. I had no idea what to expect. So I have a little bit more idea of what to expect, but I also hired a coach. And I'm working with my coach on, okay, well, how do I take Michigan's flatland and figure out how to do a 40% incline, you know? And so
that's
that's been helpful. But again,
Yes.
no guarantees, right? No guarantees that I can make it this time. Because this mountain is a little bit shorter, it's 15 ascents instead of 8 that Whistler was, but no guarantees. So I think you go into it you don't go into it saying, oh, you know, maybe I'll make it, maybe I won't. You know, the intention is to make it, but understanding that if I don't make it, don't get so caught up in what you think is the ultimate goal and lose out on all of the other lessons that come with it.
That's awesome. I think if we all gave ourselves that grace, really what you're describing is that grace part to yourself as well with your expectations. I think if we all did that, then wouldn't we all just take on challenges more often? And wouldn't we all just get a little like farther than we would if we hadn't given ourselves a chance to try for something? And I think that's really, it can be a really a scared thing, you know, that doesn't allow us to say, I'm going to try for this goal, or I'm going to reach for this, or I'm going to try to aim a little bit higher. And a big part of that is because you think, what will it mean for me if I don't make it? And so you're really giving yourself the grace beforehand to even let yourself try And I think that's really powerful in business, especially,
Yes,
Yeah.
giving yourself that opportunity for sure.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, you mentioned anxiety earlier, right? A lot of times, if you're not sure of the outcome and different things, it can trigger anxiety, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where the breathing comes in.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, we're good. We got about 8 minutes left. Are there any ahas? Anybody else wants to share? I always call them ahas. Any big moments, any big light bulbs, if you will. I'm happy to share briefly my morning routine with you guys. That I think it kind of goes right into exactly what we're talking about. So I'll finish with that and get everybody out here. Hopefully, still a minute early. Back to the rest of your lives. Let me just switch myself back to the host. Actually, let me see if I can do that. I can. Gives me the power. Reclaim it, it says. Okay. All right, so just real quick, and I might have to skip ahead, but long story short, the opposite of all those things that we talked about at the beginning, which is what happens when you're dysregulated, depression, anxiety, fatigue, all that stuff. The opposite is true when you are regulated, and this is how it helps us be more successful. Improved focus and clarity, increased resilience, increased energy levels, better emotional health, and a higher quality of rest. So this is a morning routine, and I don't know how many of you guys listen to the Mel Robbins podcast. Anybody's heard that one? This is something that she shared on just one of hers, and I kind of broke it down a little bit, but real briefly, how many of you guys have a morning routine, like an intentional morning routine? Tom does. Paige does. Okay, I got bad news for you that even if you don't have an intentional morning routine, you do have a morning routine. Whatever your current habits are that you do most often around your morning, that's what your routine is. So I'm going to combat kind of the idea of whatever it is you might be doing with some ideas here for regulating your nervous system before you even get out into the world and have all that stimuli to respond to. So the first thing is get out of bed when your alarm goes off. If you have to put your phone in a different room, whatever it is, to make sure you get out of bed and you run after it, you got to get up because cortisol naturally helps wake you up when you wake up in the morning. So as soon as that alarm goes off, you got cortisol in your bloodstream. And if you sit in it, you will actually, that will cause a rumination, anxiety. When you have cortisol running through your veins, you should not be sitting down. You should not be laying on the couch. You should not be laying in bed because it's going to actually increase your anxiety going into the day because it's telling you to get up and move. So you've got to do it. The next is to make your bed. This is an easy win. Another chemical here at play is dopamine. Dopamine is the reward center. So it's an easy win for you going into the day. Boom, I won, I did it. Also, clutter can actually, for a lot of people who are very sensitive, this can dysregulate you. So you're kind of giving yourself a gift of the cleanliness when you go back into your room throughout the day, and especially at night. You're not going into what seems like an environment that has unfinished business. Drink water. So this was the hardest one for me, and I tried to implement this, and I've been doing okay, but basically adenosine is because we're getting talking about all the different molecules here. There's an adenosine system, and basically what that is your brain and your body is giving you adenosine throughout the night, similar to melatonin to keep you asleep, right? And it's one of those things that highly affects your circadian rhythm. At the end of the night or the beginning of the morning, your body also has a system for flushing that adenosine out. So basically taking that tired molecule and getting it out of your system. If you put caffeine in your system, however, as soon as you wake up, it actually stops that process of flushing it out. So if you don't wait till all the adenosine is gone, which is usually they say about 2.5 hours after you wake up, which I know you're thinking like, oh, can I wait 2.5 hours to have my coffee? You might find that you don't need your coffee as much. So people who did this in studies where they delayed coffee until all that system was able to flush out all the sleepy chemicals and molecules in your brain, they actually found that they drank less coffee throughout the day. So sunlight, getting sunlight in your eyes is great for your circadian rhythm and getting sleep the next night. The 5-10-20 rule is if it's sunny outside, 5 minutes. If it's cloudy outside, 10 minutes. And if it's like I'm curled up, I'm in Michigan, it's freezing outside, and I'm just gonna cuddle up next to the window, then 20 minutes, right, of that natural light. And then the last one is walking. And obviously you can do the last two together. All these good science terms in here. When we walk, another term for that is forward ambulation. Basically what it does is if anybody here has ever experienced a flow state, this is your body's natural flow state. When you're walking, your optic and auditory flow state are engaged, and it decreases anxiety, and it puts your body seriously in a primed state for the rest of your day for focus, clarity, all of those things. So, you know, if it's sunny outside, all of this can be done in about 10 minutes, right? Just getting up to your alarm, making your bed, that takes only a few seconds, and then drink some water, get outside and just walk for a little bit. Or if you can't, obviously doing it inside. But I just thought this was a good, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for how to, you know, get yourself started on the right foot for your morning. All right. Let me see what time it is. All right. Anything else anybody wants to add before we leave for today? Darcy's going to be so proud of everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Yvette and Jim. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you
I miss
next
you
month.
already.